At 0700 on January 24, 1945, First Lieutenant Garlin Murl Conner stood in the frozen command post of 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry Regiment, watching German artillery shells destroy the tree line 400 yards to his front. 25 years old, intelligence officer, recently returned from the hospital with wounds still healing. The German 19th Army had massed 600 infantry troops and 6 Mark 6 Tiger tanks for a counterattack designed to break through the American positions near Husson, France. Conner was 5'6", 120 pounds, a tobacco farmer from Clinton County, Kentucky. He had never finished high school. The nearest school had been 15 miles from his family's farm. He had enlisted in March 1941. 4 years of war. 10 major campaigns, 4 amphibious assault landings, wounded 7 times. The last wound had sent him to the hospital 3 weeks ago. He had returned to his battalion 2 days earlier. 3rd Battalion held a section of the front line north of the Colmar Pocket. The Colmar Pocket was the last German-held territory in France, 850 square miles of frozen forest and farm fields west of the Rhine River. The Germans had held it since November. Every attempt to eliminate the pocket had failed. The French First Army had lost thousands of men trying to push the Germans back across the Rhine. Operation Nordwind had started on New Year's Day, the last major German offensive in the West. Hitler had ordered Army Group G to break through American lines in Alsace. While the Battle of the Bulge still raged 300 meters north, the offensive had failed, but the Germans in the Colmar Pocket remained, and they were desperate. 3rd Battalion had been on the line for 18 days. Temperatures averaged 10 degrees below zero. No moonlight. Snow covered everything. Soldiers slept in frozen foxholes when they could sleep at all. German patrols probed the American positions every night. The battalion had lost 43 men in 2 weeks, mostly to artillery and sniper fire. Conner worked in the battalion command post. An intelligence officer gathered information about enemy movements, interrogated prisoners, analyzed patrol reports, marked German positions on maps. It was not a combat role. Intelligence officers stayed behind the front line. They worked with maps and reports. They did not lead attacks. But Conner had not stayed behind the lines during 4 years of war. He had earned 4 Silver Stars for direct combat action. October 1943 in Italy, January 1944 at Anzio, September 1944 in France, February 1945. Each Silver Star represented an action where Conner had risked his life to save other soldiers. He had a reputation in 3rd Battalion. When the situation turned desperate, Conner moved forward. At 07:15, the German artillery barrage intensified. Shells walked across the battalion's forward positions. Trees exploded. Dirt and frozen earth fountained into the air. The barrage lasted 12 minutes. Then it stopped. Silence. Then, the sound of tank engines. A runner burst into the command post. Germans advancing, 6 Tigers, infantry behind them. Hundreds of infantry moving through the woods toward the battalion's left flank. The battalion commander looked at the map. If the Tigers reached the American positions, they would roll through the foxholes. The battalion would be overrun. There were no American tanks in position to stop them. No tank destroyers. The only weapon that could stop 6 Tigers was artillery. But artillery needed a forward observer, someone who could see the Germans advancing, someone who could adjust the fire. The forward observation post had been destroyed by the barrage. The observers were dead or wounded. No one could see the German advance from the command post. The trees blocked the view. If you want to see how Conner's decision turned out, please hit that like button. It helps us share more stories about forgotten heroes. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Conner. Conner studied the map. The German advance was coming through a section of woods 400 yards from the command post. To observe the attack, someone would have to run 400 yards across open ground under German artillery fire, then stay in position ahead of the American line while 6 Tiger tanks and 600 German infantry advanced directly toward them. Conner picked up a telephone and 400 yards of wire. He looked at the battalion commander. Then he walked out of the command post into the snow. The German artillery barrage had stopped, but Conner knew it would resume. The Germans always fired preparation barrages before tank attacks. They would wait for their infantry to get closer. Then the guns would open up again to pin down the defenders while the Tigers rolled forward. Conner ran. 400 yards of open ground between the command post and the front line.
snow covering frozen earth, the telephone wire unspooled behind him. He carried the spool in his left hand, the telephone handset in his right. His boots broke through the snow crust with each step. At 100 yards, the German guns opened fire. Shells landed 40 yards to his left, then 30 yards to his right. The Germans were adjusting. They had observers watching the open ground. They could see a lone American soldier running toward their attack. A shell hit a tree 70 yards ahead. The tree exploded. Splinters and branches and frozen wood fragments showered down. Conner kept running. Another shell landed 20 yards behind him. The concussion wave hit him like a fist. He stumbled but did not fall. The wire kept unspooling. At 250 yards, a shell destroyed a tree directly in his path. The trunk split down the middle. Half the tree crashed down across the snow. Conner vaulted over the trunk without stopping. Shrapnel had torn through the branches. Pieces of hot metal hissed in the snow. Another shell, this one closer, 15 yards to his left. Frozen dirt and snow geysered up. Chunks of dirt rained down on him. The blast wave hammered his eardrums. He could not hear his own breathing anymore, just a high-pitched ringing. He reached the American front line at 300 yards. Soldiers crouched in foxholes. They stared at him. An intelligence officer running toward the German advance with a telephone. He did not stop to explain. He kept running forward toward the enemy. 30 yards beyond the American foxholes, Conner found what he needed. A shallow ditch, maybe 18 inches deep. Not deep enough to stop bullets, not deep enough to protect against artillery, but deep enough to give him a sight line toward the advance while keeping his silhouette below the snow level. He dropped into the ditch. The telephone wire had held. He cranked the handset. The connection buzzed. Then, a voice. The artillery fire direction center 3 miles behind the front line. American 105mm howitzers, 12 guns. Enough firepower to shatter a German attack if the shells landed in the right place. Conner gave his position. The fire direction officer confirmed. Conner was now the eyes of 3rd Battalion's artillery. Everything depended on what he could see and whether he could stay alive long enough to direct the guns. He raised his head above the ditch rim. The German infantry were 200 yards away, moving through the trees in squad formations, rifles at the ready. They advanced in short rushes. One squad would move while another provided covering fire. Professional soldiers, experienced. They knew how to attack through defended positions. Behind the infantry, the Tigers. Conner could see all 4 of them now. Massive 60-ton monsters pushing through the smaller trees like they were saplings. The Tigers stayed in the tree line, using the forest for cover, but they were coming. Slow, methodical. They would break into the open ground in minutes. The German infantry had not seen him yet. He was alone, 30 yards ahead of the American line, in a ditch that provided almost no protection, with a telephone and 600 German soldiers walking directly toward them. Conner lifted the handset. He gave the coordinates. Fire mission. Enemy infantry in the open, 600 meters. Adjusting. The first shells would arrive in 40 seconds. If the Germans spotted him before the shells landed, they would kill him before he could adjust the fire. If the shells landed too close to his position, they would kill him anyway. If the shells landed too far from the German advance, the attack would continue and 600 Germans would overrun 3rd Battalion's positions. Conner watched the German advance. He counted the seconds. 38, 39, 40. The sky screamed. 12 105mm shells hit the tree line 150 yards behind the German infantry. Too far. Conner grabbed the handset. Drop 100. Fire for effect. The next salvo arrived 18 seconds later. This time, the shells landed in the middle of the German formation. The forest erupted. Trees disintegrated. Shrapnel screamed through the air in every direction. The 105 shells carried 14 pounds of high explosive each. 12 shells, 168 pounds of explosive detonating simultaneously among 600 men packed into attack formations. German soldiers disappeared. Others went down. The advance stopped. Conner cranked the handset. Repeat fire. Same coordinates. Another salvo. Then another. The American guns were firing for effect now. Maximum rate of fire. 4 rounds per minute per gun. 48 shells every 60 seconds, hammering the same 200 square yards of forest. The German infantry scattered. Squad formations broke apart. Soldiers ran for cover. Some dove behind trees. Others tried to crawl away from the impact zone. The The forest had become a killing ground, but the tigers were still coming. Conner could see all 6 now. They had broken out of the tree line into open ground. The artillery had not touched them. 105 shells could damage a tiger's tracks or optics, but they could not penetrate the armor. The tigers needed direct hits, multiple direct hits, and even then the shells might bounce off. The tanks advanced in a wedge formation, 2 in front, 2 behind them, 2 more bringing the rear. Tank commanders stood in the turrets. They were scanning for targets, looking for American positions to engage. One of the tigers fired. The 88mm gun cracked like thunder. The shell hit an American foxhole 300 yards to Conner's right. Dirt and snow exploded upward. Those soldiers in that foxhole were dead. Another tiger fired. Another foxhole obliterated. The tigers were 300 yards from the American line. In 4 minutes, they would reach the foxholes.